Hi guys! So one more quick practice for today, namely the 2018 Standard Level Biology Final Exam paper. On each slide, typically in a yellow box, you can see the textbook's related pages. And let's start with the first exercise, which is entitled The Lynx and its Prey. In the picture, lynx with a J in its mouth can be seen. Compare the characteristic features of the two animal species. So let's look at the statements. It has nearly constant body temperature. We know that both birds and mammals are homeothermic, so C is going to be the good answer. Its breastbone has a keel for the breast muscle to attach to. We know a keel is an extension of the sternum in case of birds, therefore B comes to this box. It has double ventilation, that's again something which is a characteristical feature of birds. Its skin has keratinized epithelial layer. That's true for both mammals and birds. Its camera is capable of image formation. That's again something which is true for both. The gas exchange takes place on the surface of the alveoli in its lungs. Mammals are breathing with the help of alveoli, so lynx is going to be the good answer. It has open circulatory system. We know that both birds and mammals have closed, therefore D comes to this box. Its body consists of eukaryotic cells. That's true for both. No bacteria are mentioned in the exercise. Its food substances are broken down within the cells by intracellular digestion. Basically, the digestion takes place in the lumen of the digestive tract in case of these animals. Therefore, it's extracellular, so D is going to be the good answer. During its fetal development, it is nourished by the mother's organism. We know that lynx is a placental mammal, so A is gonna be the good answer. Let's continue with the second exercise, circulatory systems of vertebrates. Compare the main features of the circulatory systems among the three classes of vertebrates. Write the numbers of the statements in the appropriate places of the Venn diagram. So we are going to work with amphibians, reptiles, and mammals, and it's very useful if you remember what you have learned about the heart structure and the circulation of fish, amphibians, reptiles, and birds and mammals. Okay, first statement, they have double circulation. We know that from amphibians we can talk about double circulation. So number one comes here. Their heart has one ventricle where the oxygen-rich and the carbon dioxide-rich blood mix. We know that amphibians have a three-chambered heart, so number two will belong to this part. The partition between the ventricles is not complete, so the two blood circuits are not separated completely. Okay, so reptiles have partial separation in between the ventricles, therefore the blood can mix to a certain extent, so three will belong to this part. The right and the left part of the heart are completely separated. Okay, that's true for mammals, definitely, and birds, but that's not an option. The carbon dioxide-rich blood from the body enters the right atrium. Now that's something which is true for all of these groups. Okay, the blood returning to the heart carries the oxygen picked up through capillaries, both the lungs and the skin. Okay, skin breathing is only present in case of amphibians, so number 6 will belong to this part. Next one, the small blood circuit picks up oxygen in the capillaries surrounding the large respiratory surface of the lungs, but not in the capillaries of the skin. Okay, that's gonna be true for mammals and reptiles. The oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor blood mix to varying extent in the heart. We have discussed that's true for amphibians and reptiles. And then besides oxygen, their blood carries nutrients and metabolic waste as well. That's true for all. Exercise 3. Seeds and germination. Seeds, which offer an effective propagation method for flowering plants, germinate and develop into new plants under suitable conditions. Which of the following groups of plants are characterized by seeds? Write the letter of the correct answers into the boxes. So we are looking for seedivascular plants out of these options. Pine trees are gymnosperms, which are seedivascular plants. Mosses are non-vascular. Horsetails are vascular but non-flowering. And ferns also belong to the same group. And dicotyledonous plants, we know that they are angiosperms and they are also seedivascular. So the good answers will be A and D. In order for seeds to germinate, certain internal and external conditions have to be provided. Which of the conditions listed below are required for germination? Write the letters of the correct answers into the boxes. So we know that in order to germinate a seed, many factors must be suitable. For example, oxygen should be present, water should be present, and then proper temperature is very important. So one of the good answers will be definitely the suitable temperature. Obviously, depending on the individual needs, light can also have the process, but definitely what is needed for all of the seeds is that the germination inhibitors must be broken down. So that's gonna be the other good answer, B and D. Try the following experiment carefully. One of the test tubes is filled with germinating seeds. The other test tube is half filled with lime water and sealed with a rubber stopper with a glass tube running through the middle. The free end of a rubber stopper is inserted into the test tube with the germinating seeds in it. One end of the glass tube should dip into the lime water, while the opposite end should extend into the germinating seeds. The result of the experiment, the lime water turns milky. Okay, this kind of experiment has been analyzed in a previous video when we did the 2017 exam. I think it was exercise 5. Based on the result of the experiment and your knowledge, fill in the gaps of the following text with the words given. You do not need to use all the words. So let's have a look. During germination, the hydrolysis of the stored food substances takes place so that the energy requirement of the seedling can be met by the oxidation of these products. Carbon dioxide is released in this breakdown process, which turns the lime water milky. During germination, the stored food substances are used up in a couple of days. How does the plant obtain the energy required for its further development? Write the letter of the correct answer into the box. It takes up additional organic substances from the soil to be used up in photosynthesis. That's not true. It gains its energy from the oxidation of carbon dioxide absorbed from the atmosphere. It gains its energy through the breakdown of carbon dioxide produced in photosynthesis. We are using carbon dioxide in photosynthesis, and C is not a good answer. It produces glucose in photosynthesis, which is used in biological oxidation to release energy. This statement seems okay. The inorganic compounds taken up from the soil are broken down in biological oxidation, definitely not. So D will be written here. Okay. Exercise 4, blood donation. Based on what you studied about the inheritance of AB, O, and Rh blood groups, answer the following questions. Ignore the possibility of mutations. In response to a call for blood donation, Zoltán has decided to help, but he does not know his own blood group. All he knows is that his father has blood group A and his mother has blood group B. In today's practice, everybody gets their own blood type. Is it possible that Zoltán has a matching blood type if blood group O is needed? And you have to give 2 answers here. Give your reason for your answer, and your answer should include the word allele, so you have to support your statement as well. When you answer this question, keep in mind that A and B alleles are dominant alleles over the O, but when the A and B alleles are present together, they are codominant to each other, so both of them will affect the phenotype. Okay, keeping in mind the inheritance pattern of this blood group, we can simply state that it is possible that Zoltán has type O blood if both of the parents are carrying the O allele and they pass it to Zoltán. It's not part of the exercise, but if we make the cross, that will help our understanding. So these were the phenotypes of the parents, these were the genotypes of the parents. During the lessons we use different abbreviations like this and this. But in this exercise, these are accepted. And then a Punnett square will show us basically the possible outcomes. Okay, so when we observe the phenotypes, we can see that it's possible to have type AB, type B blood, type A blood, or type O blood, whenever we are observing the offsprings. So, can Zoltán have blood group A? Give your reason for your answer. Your answer should include the words heterozygote and recessive. So it's important for you to remember that these two words should be included in the second part of the exercise, like alle was the word that was important at the first part. We have discussed that type O blood is a possibility. We can also conclude that blood group A can be a possible outcome of the cross. So the answer is that Zoltán can have type A blood, and the explanation is very simple. It can only happen if the mom is donating a recessive allele to Zoltán, so if the mom was heterozygous. Give the possible genotypes of Zoltán's mother and father. So as for the mother, she has type, blood group B. So basically, the possible genotypes are the following: homozygous, dominant, or heterozygous. And for the father, same conditions can be mentioned. In the blood donor center, Zoltán meets József, whose father has blood group B and his mother has blood group A. Does József have similar chances to Zoltán in terms of being able to give blood to the patient who needs blood group O? Give your reason briefly to support your answer. Include the word chromosome in your answer. Due to the fact we know that it is an autosomal trait, they have similar chances of being able to donate blood to a person who has type O blood. So the answers are the following. The chances are similar and the explanation must be written down. So it's an autosomal trait. József has the same chances of getting either allele from either parent. We have studied sex-linked and X-linked patterns like hemophilia, colorblindness. This is not that case. Why would it have serious consequences if a person with blood group O received blood from someone with blood group A? Give your reason for your answer by including the words antigen and antibody. So in the exam you have to be able to answer this question by heart, but for now you have this little table. So we are interested in the second column and the last one. And when O is the recipient and A is the donor, the situation unfortunately is not successful, because in the recipient blood plasma we can see that both anti-A and anti-B antibodies are present. And therefore, basically in the recipient blood plasma, the A antigens will be agglutinated by the anti-A antibodies. So that's what we need to write down in a nice way somehow in here, and that's one way of putting it. Let's continue with the fifth exercise, matter and energy. Study the following diagram. The capital letters mark certain groups of living things, while the lowercase letters indicate processes. If a letter occurs more than once in the diagram, it always refers to the same thing. Match the following terms with the letters of the diagram. Before we start to answer the questions, let's analyze the drawing in here. So we can see that the organisms that are indicated by C are using light energy and inorganic substances to do something. So definitely these are going to be producers. So for example, plants are located in here. Then the next trophic level, this is going to be the primary consumer level. So primary consumers are located here. The secondary consumers, we know that only 10% of the energy will be passed on from one trophic level to another, and approximately 90% of the energy will be lost mainly as heat. And we also know that the matter is being recycled in an ecosystem, and decomposers will have a crucial role in this process. So the flow of matter is going to be A for sure. The energy loss, as we discussed, it's going to be lowercase b, and primary consumers are indicated by capital D. What type of organisms is marked by letter F? In the diagram, discuss briefly their role in the ecosystem. As we have mentioned previously, these are going to be the decomposers, and they have an extremely important role as they break down the dead organic materials and turn back the raw material into the soil. So F is indicating decomposers. They break down dead organic matter and they make the simpler inorganic materials available for plants again. What statements can be made on the diagram above? Choose the correct statements and write their letters in the boxes. So the animal marked by C can be a great tit feeding on caterpillars. That's definitely not true, because we have discussed that producers are being located here. Humans can be represented by either D or E. That's something which is true. It can be seen by looking at the diagram that the matter is recycled in the ecosystem. That's again true. Fungi can be placed on the level marked by C. That is definitely not true. Fungi are not autotrophic organisms. The organism marked by E can be a locust, which feeds on the leaves of a maize plant. That is not, so the good answers will be B and C. Patterns of inheritance. The occurrence of alkaptonuria, a heritable metabolic disease, is shown in the family tree below through 3 generations. The persons showing the symptoms of the disease are represented by the darkened symbols. The affected person is unable to break down the compound called alkapton, which stains the urine and the body fluids. After studying the family tree, answer the questions below. The disease is inherited by a recessive allele of a single gene. After studying the family tree below, find a married couple in the family tree whose child allow us to tell that the faulty allele is recessive. Identify the persons by the combination of Roman and Arabic numbers, for example 2 per 3, give their genotypes as well. The faulty allele is to be marked with a lowercase a, while the healthy one with a capital A. So let's observe the family tree. We can clearly see that from this marriage, the inheritance pattern is indicated as both of the parents are healthy, so they must be heterozygous for the trait, but their offspring will be diseased. So to answer the question, we need to write here 2 per 5 and then 2 per 6. And the genotypes are going to be the following: big A, small a, big A, small a. Give the genotype of person 1 per 1 and then 1 per 2. Okay, it's very easy. We need to look at the offsprings. We know it for sure that this individual must be homozygous recessive, and this individual must be heterozygous, taking into consideration that they have diseased offsprings as well. So 1 per 1 will be big A, small a, and 1 per 2 will be small a, small a. The woman 2 per 1, so this woman, does not carry this faulty allele. What are the chances of this woman having a child suffering from alkaptonuria from the person 2 per 2? Give your reason for your answer. So we know it for sure that it is homozygous dominant if she is not carrying the faulty allele. And the husband is going to be diseased, but both of their offsprings are going to be healthy. Now, if you look at this cross, you can know it for sure that 100% of the offsprings will be heterozygous. So basically 0% chance is present for the parents to have diseased children, as the mom can only donate dominant alleles, and that is donating the recessive one, but in one way or another, the offsprings will be heterozygous. Okay, so 0% chance is present for them to have a diseased child, as the mom can only donate a dominant allele. Exercise 7, the pancreas. The pancreas is not only an exocrine but an endocrine gland. Describe the difference between the two functions by filling the gaps in the following sentences. As an exocrine gland, the pancreas produces a digestive juice called pancreatic juice, which is carried along the pancreatic duct into the first part of the small intestine, which is called the duodenum, part of the digestive tract. Among other functions, it helps digest the starch content of the food. The end product of the process is glucose, a simple sugar. As an endocrine gland, the pancreas releases the hormone, insulin, which is a hormone lowering blood sugar level into the blood. Elevated production of this hormone is induced by an increase in blood sugar level, which promotes the uptake of sugar into the body cells. The duct leading from the exocrine pancreas joins the duct of another digestive juice as shown in the diagram. Give the name of this digestive juice and that of the organ which produces it. Name also the type of substances whose digestion is helped by this digestive juice. So a complex gland must be mentioned in here that has many functions. The liver is going to be the gland. It can be seen here as well, attached to the duodenum. And the digestive juice that is produced by the liver is stored in the gallbladder, and that's called bile. Don't forget, it is helping us to emulsify fat droplets, lipids. So substances whose digestion is helped, those are going to be the lipids. Don't forget that the lipase is the actual enzyme that finally breaks it down. A serious disease of the pancreas is the pancreatic cancer, which is shown in the magnified part of the diagram. Describe what is meant by a cancerous tumor in general, and describe also the meaning of a tumor being malignant. Okay, so we have two questions in here. First one, what is a cancerous tumor? A cancer is a disease of uncontrolled cell division in general, and then a malignant tumor, benign tumor is the other type. The malignant tumor is the tumor that has metastasized, so actually the cancerous cells spread to other body parts. And this is what I wrote down in here. Exercise 8, mountain avens. The mountain avens is a flowering plant typically occurring in high mountains and in the tundra. Its scientific name is Dryas octopetala. Write down the name of the scientist with whom the naming system, binomial nomenclature, is associated. Explain also what the first and the second part of the name refer to. As we know, Linné is the father of taxonomy who formalized the binomial nomenclature. And when we look at the name, the first word is referring to the genus and the second one is describing the species. So that's what we need to write here. So Linné, the first word refers to genus and the second part describes the species. By what means the pollen grains are transferred to the carpel? Give your reason for your answer by naming the relevant part of the plant. So we know that carpel is the female reproductive part of the flower, and basically flowers with large and brightly colored petals are easily noticed or detected by insects. So insect pollination is taking place and the petals are easily detected by these little animals. In spite of its short stature, the mountain avens has woody stems and is a dwarf shrub. Apart from being firmer and thicker, the woody stem differs also from the soft stem in its structure. Give two differences between the woody and the soft stems with regard to their tissue structure. Okay, so there are many differences in between the herbaceous stems and woody stems, but it's important to remember what we have discussed about the vascular cambium. So in the woody stem, it is being present in a ring form, it forms a cylinder, and it's responsible for producing the secondary phloem and the secondary xylem. You can also read it in the key as well that this cambium ring brings about similarly closed xylem with annual rings and phloem. Okay, so let's move on to the next exercise. The easily noticeable white flowers do not photosynthesize. Name the part of the transport tissue in which the nutrients are carried from the leaves to the flower. So the question is asking us about the vascular tissue, more specifically that vascular tissue type must be mentioned, which is responsible for transporting organic substances, namely the phloem. The area of distribution of the mountain aven species is shown in the map. The large extent areas are cross-hatched while the dots represent local occurrences. Name one climatic feature all the current habits of the mountain avens have in common. You can see that the majority of them are being located at cold climates. Under suitable condition, the pollen grains of the mountain avens are preserved for a long time and can be identified under microscope. That is how we know that this species used to be endemic in most parts of Europe, including the present territory of Hungary. Describe the consequence that can be drawn from this fact with regard to the changes in climate that have taken place in Europe in the past 20,000 years. So we have just discussed that they prefer chill conditions, cold climate, so probably the climate became warmer. Based on the information of the previous question, explain the fact that the present distribution of the mountain avens is scattered. It can be assumed that the former large populations survived isolated from each other, where the environmental factors were appropriate for them. So that's what we can write down. The original large population survived in isolated cold mountain regions distant from each other. The mountain aven specimens endemic to Norway and to the Carpathians show similar visible characters. Describe how it can be decided by means of a crossing experiment whether these plants belong to the same species or not. We know that organisms belong to the same species if they can produce a fertile offspring. So what we can put here is that if no fertile offspring is produced as a result of the mutual pollination, they belong to different species. Okay, moving on to the last exercise, which is entitled Epidemics. A lot of pathogens spread by rapidly multiplying in huge numbers in the form of epidemics. Name 2 ways in which an infectious pathogen can be transmitted from one person to another. You can mention many things in here, for example, coughing, sneezing, or the consumption of contaminated food or water. You can also think about the sexually transmitted diseases or the usage of infected needles, and parasitic animals can also transmit diseases. The exercise is asking us to name 2 ways, so I just write here coughing and parasitic animals. The spread of many epidemics can be prevented by applying good hygienic practices. Name 1 such good practice. A wide variety of answers can be given to this task as well. I just write here, cover your nose and mouth with a tissue when you are coughing or sneezing, but you can also mention wash your hands before you eat or protect yourself against pathogens. These kind of things can be mentioned. Next one. The graph shows the changes in the number of parasitic bacterium population over several years. The process is divided into 3 stages, each marked with different letters. What are the characteristics of each stage? Write the letter of the appropriate stage next to each statement. Okay, so on the y-axis we can see the number of bacteria, and on the x-axis the years are indicated. The immune system of infected people recognizes the pathogens and responds to them by producing antibodies. That's gonna be B, as we can see it on the graph as well. The pathogens invading the body are multiplying rapidly. That's gonna be the other side. So A will come here. Large proportion of the human population developed immunity against the disease. That is going to be this part, so C will be written in here. The people infected often have high temperature. That's the first phase, so that's gonna be A again. In a unit time, more pathogens die than are formed by binary fission. That's something which is true for B. Explain the possible reason why some pathogens, for example the flu viruses, reappear time and time again and can cause epidemics, although earlier the population already acquired immunity against them. Okay, so mutations can give rise to new disease-causing infectious strains, and that can be the reason why these kind of pathogens reappear from time to time. Okay, so we finished. I hope it was helpful. Should you have any questions, you can always write me, and I wish you the best of good luck.